fourth Sunday of Advent. Rorate Celi is the introit of the fourth Sunday of Advent. Rorate Celi de super, et nubes pluant iustum, aperiatur terra, et germinet salvatorem. Translation: Drop dew, O heavens, from above, and let the clouds rain the just one. Let the earth be opened, and sprout forth the Saviour. The fourth Sunday of Advent was marked in the ancient Roman liturgical books as a Sunday that vacat, that is missing, because the vigil began the previous evening, concluded at dawn with the Mass, which replaced the Sunday liturgical office. It was only beginning in the 8th century, when the rites of the vigil were moved back to Saturday morning, that the Sunday was endowed with a Mass of its own. This anomaly was born from the fact that the third Sunday of Advent coincided with the tempora of winter, one of the four tempora, corresponding to the Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday of the beginning of each of the four seasons. On these days, characterized by prayer and fasting, the ordination of bishops, priests, and deacons were conducted. Suppressed in the current liturgy, the four tempora were a living testimony of attachment to the land, expressed with a character of a rural solemnity, a sort of celebration of the seasons, to attract the fruits of the earth and the blessings of God, and to thank Him for the harvest. The liturgy of the four tempora became a symbol of this richness of gifts, modifying its usual structure with the addition on Wednesday of a reading with the corresponding gradual chant, and with 7 more readings interspersed with graduals, hymns, and tractus at the celebration on Saturday. This meant that our fourth Sunday of Advent was overshadowed a bit by this week of solemn and special thanksgiving. From being a vacant Sunday, it then became the last Sunday of this liturgical season, but without the provision of new texts for the chants of the propers. These, in fact, were taken from the Mass of the previous Wednesday and adapted to the Sunday liturgy. The Mass of Feria Quarta, the Wednesday of the tempora of Advent, was called during medieval times the Missa Aurea Beate Mariae, because it was strongly Marian in tone and commemorated the prophecy of Isaiah about the Virgin who conceives and gives birth to Emmanuel, God with us. We therefore still find today in the proper chants of this Mass a clear Marian imprint, particularly in the offertory Ave Maria and in the Communio Ecce Virgo Concipiet. The introit Rorate Celi, for its part, since it constitutes an integral part and the title of this Mass, merits a few more observations. The text of this piece is a faithful rendition of a verse from Isaiah. Unlike what was seen on the second Sunday of Advent in the introit Populus Sion, in this case no operation has been carried out on the biblical text. There are no synchronizations, adaptations, or modifications of the text, which is presented exactly as he appears in the Latin version of the Vulgate of Jerome. At closer inspection, however, two modifications of the original Hebrew text have been made by Jerome himself. With respect to the recent translations of the Bible that are based on the original text in the Hebrew language, we note in Isaiah two important variations. Justum, the just one, has taken the place of justitiam, justice, and salvatorem, the Saviour, has replaced salvationem, salvation. Jerome's translation in a Christological vein appears here in all of its vividness and expressive power. The concepts of justice and salvation are embodied in the person of the Just One, the Saviour. The prophecy of Isaiah is embodied in the figure of Christ, which not coincidentally becomes, on the Wednesday of the winter tempora, the fruit of the earth and gift of the clouds of heaven. Advent in the flesh, the mystery of the Incarnation, is here celebrated in all of its humanity, and as a result is associated in the other chants of the Mass just cited with the figure of the Virgin Mother. The acoustical architecture designed by Gregorian Chant for the Rorate is surprising, already in the musical composition of some of the phrases. Just as de super, from above, moves in the highest register, so also pluant justum, rain down the just one, is realized in a descending line through a rain of notes. In the same way, in the concluding phrase, the earth coincides with the lowest zone of melodic construction and determines in relation to the structure of the first phrase a clear timbre of protus authenticus, that first mode with which the modal classification of the Gregorian octoechos begins. But the fact that this introit is well founded in the first mode is declared even more clearly above all in incipit of the entire piece. The imperative rorate is proclaimed with a formula typical of the first mode, a formula defined as being of accent, but that in reality is not limited to a simple emphasis of a tonic syllable. This is instead a real and proper expressive timbre, immediately declared and pointed out as the accentual summit of the whole composition, and that, as such, colors the entire introit, influencing the modal structure. The imperative rorate is therefore endowed with an entirely special rhetorical heft. Another matter, evidently, is the apostolic imperative of Paul that resounded in the introit of the third Sunday of Advent. On that gaudete, in fact, the accent was not definitive, because the true accentual focus was pushed back to the semper that closes the first phrase. Gaudete in Domino semper. Rejoice in the Lord always. The expressive power of the rorate becomes the symbol of an anticipation that becomes ever more anxious, and that the liturgy of the divine office of the last days of Advent summarizes in the famous 7 antiphons for the Magnificat called the O antiphons from their incipit, O Sapientia, O Emmanuel, O Adonai. Gregorian monody, in short, advises us with growing intensity that the time of our salvation is near, and makes itself the voice of the Church that invokes the coming of its Lord.
Sole